let's look at some facts here.
Yep.
Being a male primary school teacher, so I'm going to whip these out to you, Hayden. I want you to tell me whether they surprise you or not and what you think of them.
Okay.
25% of state-funded schools in the Southeast do not have a single male classroom teacher. So 1 in 4 schools, state-funded schools in the Southeast of England, there's not an option to have a male primary school teacher. They don't exist. They're not in the school.
Yeah. When you said that, initially I was a bit like, oh, but I don't think I'm that surprised, to be honest with you. You've got more to say to this one.
Yeah, no, just more facts. So that did shock me at first, like you said, to have none at all. But I guess it makes sense. You'll have other schools where maybe half the teachers are male. So it's not going to be an even distribution.
I mean, again, I know we're obviously going to do this a lot and actually do just reflect on our experiences, to kind of go alongside these stats. But when I started teaching, I was in quite a big school, 4 form entry, and it was just junior. So there were 16 classes, and I was the only male teacher at that point. Not forever, but at that point when I joined, I was one of one male, 15 female teachers. So yeah, it kind of.
So I wonder how much of that 75% is our schools with just one.
That's true.
So that's another big chunk as well to kind of exacerbate that. So I'm going to keep going now. 15.5% of primary school teachers in England are male.
Oh, okay. That's actually more than I thought. Genuinely more than I thought. I really thought that stat would be under 10%. So I'm quite surprised.
Well, it's been on an upward steady curve. Well, it was from like 2010, it was about 13%. Upward steady curve till about 2015, and then it's tapered off. It stayed at about 15%. So, between 1 and 2 and 10. So again, to me, from my experience, it's about right. Here's where it gets interesting, and here's where I think on a very specific level, we see our privilege. Okay. 15.5% of male teachers are male.
Can I guess this next stat? Because I have no idea. But can I just guess roughly what it's going to be? Is it going to be compared to that 15%? Is it going to be a way higher percentage of men in like more managerial roles or something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah. So here we go. 19.4% of deputy heads are male. So there's a discrepancy there.
So a bit higher.
26.9% of heads are male.
Wow.
So in terms of a statistical significance, that's a huge leap to go from 15% of the workforce end up being 25% of the headship. Yeah,
that's a lot. I mean, it's not too far off double, really, is it? In terms of percentage wise. I'm not surprised because I think we can probably have a whole conversation about the kind of culture. I actually think it links to that previous stat as well. Like, how you said it's been going up steadily, like primary school male teachers. I genuinely think even in my 8 years that the kind of cultural view of primary school teachers is changing a little bit. Because when I started, one of my first experiences in the primary school teaching world, it might be I think it was when I was training. Someone said to me, and it was like a distant family relative. I don't really know this person, but they were down and around, classic big family gathering. And they made some comment. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was one of those really derogatory things like, "Oh, what are you doing that? That's a woman's job." And I was just like, "Really? Like that's genuinely something that you've just said to me, like into my face," and thinking I'd be like, "Haha, yeah." Like, what are you talking about? But I do think a lot of people have that opinion, and now. And it's generally just becoming more normal, and no one really cares about that. It's quite an old opinion, isn't it, on teaching? Yeah,
it's very outdated. I think we're going to go into some of that in a minute. I want to really explore that a bit more about people's views. So that's really interesting. You said that, but it kind of comes down to it, doesn't it? Where the thing I wanted to transition to here is very much there is that idea of if you're a male primary school teacher, there's the initial thought on why men working with children, working with young children, the idea of society, their role, very outdated but still exists. But there's also that idea of once male teachers are in the primary school, it's very much expected that they're working their way up that ladder. Whereas for a female teacher, far less so from what I've seen before. It's way more accepted that, you'll be a class teacher, and then one day you might have a baby, and then one might, and it's very condescending. It's very condescending. And I really, really feel uncomfortable with that, because that is something that absolutely exists, and it perpetuates itself throughout the profession. And it's a female dominated profession. I don't think it's male from the top down saying, men, you go to positions of power. If anything, I have that more of an experience from female staff who kind of say, oh, well, you know, what are you doing then? Are you going to go for that head of year job, you know, like 2 years into my job?
Yeah, sure.
Are you going to go for that, you know, head of maths job? Are you going to go for this? Are you going to go for that? I felt that pressure for sure, that expectation to climb the ladder. And it's like a self-perpetuating, almost like it is a problem, isn't it, I guess, because it's massively skewed and we're in positions of power more often based on how many people are in the job in the first place. Like it seems a bit odd.
And we know it exists because the data you just read is literally the proof of that. So, you know, no one can sit there and say, no, they don't. Men don't feel like, yeah, well, they do, because otherwise you wouldn't have, you know, double the amount of teachers, but, you know, men being disproportionately represented as head teachers and things like that. Of course, there's some things going on, obviously, whether it's perpetuated by everyone or a few people or just yourself or whatever. But yeah, it's very interesting because I do feel like my experiences very much match that, because when I started teaching, it was absolutely my goal to rise the ranks as quickly as possible. And looking back, I don't really know why. I genuinely don't. I don't really know why that was my goal any more than the 15 female teachers that I was working with. But it was for some reason. I had already convinced myself day one, oh yeah, well, I've got to do that. That's me. I've got to do that, haven't I? Whereas in reality, you know, years and years later, I found other things that I actually really wanted to specialize in and do differently. And suddenly that career ladder kind of went out the window a little bit for me. And I was like, oh wait, no, I enjoy doing these other things. I don't know, why was I putting this random pressure on myself to do this thing that I don't actually want to do right now? And so I felt it, you know, it definitely exists.
And there may well be, you know, people who are way more clued up on the psychology and the differences between genders and the sexes or whatever you want. You know, we're not experts in that field, so there may well be traits and things that come as a reason as to why more men might want to be going for those positions. But from my point of view, all I can say is that I definitely experienced that expectation. So regardless of whether my biological inherit of to be dominating or whatever you want to say that men do, regardless of that, like my actual experience from other people, you know, projecting onto me is an expectation to, you know, get up that leadership ladder